Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for attending the meeting. It is a Teams live, so you're not able to put your microphones on. However, if you like to ask a question, you can write it in the Q&A in the chat that you will find on the top right corner of your screen. As attendees are anonymous, it would be perfect if you could write the name of your company in the chat so we can follow up the attendees of the meeting. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Eva. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the LITER Raw Material Sustainability Sourcing webinar. I'm very pleased to do this together with the members who are going to present and transition. So as an introduction, first we have François Clément-Grandcourt, General Manager of the Group LITER Division, presenting, together with Romain Fournier, a Global VP for Procurement. Then we have two members of Transition. Transition is the partner we've chosen to help us with the transparency journey. So we have Charlotte Gobin as a Senior Project Manager and Clément Jouot as a Project Manager. So today we're going to discuss 4 specific topics. So first, we discuss our overall sustainability approach. Secondly, explain a little bit more about the partnership with Transitions and what we wanted to achieve together with Transition with regard to sustainability and transparency. Then regarding the transparency pilot we have done together with Transition and yourselves, the results. And then finally, the next steps. So for the next part, Charlotte, if you want to take the lead on this point.
Yes, hello everybody, welcome to this webinar. So in order to make everyone comfortable, we start with reading an antitrust statement. I'm sorry, it's going to be a bit long, but I have to read all of it in once verbally. So according to it, attempts to provide consumers with increased sustainability value products, BIC aimed to work with its supplier in view of enhancing the transparency of its supply chain and ensure the sustainable sourcing of the raw materials for the lighters category. This webinar is intended as an introduction to further discussion between BIC and each of its suppliers individually. Presentation will thus focus on the key issues at hand, following a specific agenda. This meeting is not attended and must not be used as a means for participants to share sensitive information, nor to reach any understanding expressed or implied with the object or effect of restricting competition. In particular, participants in the meeting must not discuss topics such as prices, including any subject relating to prices and its components such as discount, rebates, surcharge, price changes, price differentiation, profit margin, price increase, credit, and any other sales condition. Cost, including any component relating to costs such as production and distribution expense, formulas, etc. Information relating to any supplier's relationship with customers, ongoing litigation, any of a company upcoming and confidential projects, strategy along with production and technology, wage, policy, and/or generally detail specific any information on any company process, methodology, strategy, business activities and organization, etc. If the discussion turns to improper subject during the meeting, the concerned participants will be required to put an end to the discussion and to leave the meeting immediately.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Yeah, no problem.
So the first topic is the BIC sustainability approach, and Romain will give us more information on that.
Thank you, José. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. Thanks you for joining this webinar. We are really pleased to present that to you live with François Clément-Grandcourt, Transition, and José. This is a great opportunity for us, obviously, to present our commitment on sustainability, and this is the reason why we are presenting you this slide, and also the reason why we are doing that through some specific studies that we are going to walk you through in this presentation. So sustainability at BIC has been one of our strategy for many years, but we realized that we need to frame that and build that around a key program that we call Writing the Future Together. This program has been developed over many years, but it came to life in 2018, 2019, and we are developing our sustainability approach around 5 different pillars. François Clément-Gancourt is going to speak more specifically about the first one, which is fostering sustainable innovation in big product. It's going to be the next slide. But we have many other focus. And as you can see, one of them is specifically involving our supplier. By 2025, our commitment is to responsibly work with our strategic supplier to ensure the most secure, innovative, and efficient sourcing. So as you can see, it's not only, we'd say, a declaration, it's a commitment and it's an action plan. What we want to do is to put responsible procurement not as an addendum of the procurement practice within BIC, but really as a filter, as a lens, as an enabler to execute any procurement project, practice, exchange with our stakeholder internally and with our business partner and supplier externally. The reason why we are really happy to have Lighter working on this study is that it contributes to the achievement of this goal. So our goal today, by the end of 2021, is already half of the commitment, meaning that we will reach 51% of our strategic supplier with one action towards sustainability, responsible procurement by the end of 2021. Of course, there is this study that we are going to talk about, but most of you also went through some assessment with EcoVadis. We are developing a supplier diversity program specifically in North America. We are doing some due diligence work also with our legal department, and we are part of other pillars, specifically in renewable energy, in new innovation. I mean, in innovation toward recyclable, biosourced plastic, or recyclable packaging as well. So this is the full program. Obviously, if you want to know more about this program, everything is on our website on bic.com. Now I'll let François introduce you sustainability and circular economy at BIC.
Yes, thank you, Romain. So in Lighters, we are working extremely hard on the topic in addition to the group work, because the work is very active, as Romain mentioned, for a long time. And what we are talking about here for Lighters, be aware, this is a first step, and then there will be next step with the other categories, shaver and stationery. So we are piloting the way to work in Lighters in the view of enlarging. That's the first point. The second point is when we make the evaluation, and I will here just restrict to CO2 impact, but we can enlarge beyond that. But on CO2 impact, 40% of the CO2 impact of BIC is linked to the raw materials that you are selling to us. Meaning that without, and that's the biggest bucket of all it's in CO2 impact, meaning that this is a key one which we need to tackle and on which we need to progress. Without it, the commitment that BIC would be taking on CO2 would be simply not achievable. So here you see two examples of a commitment. One about in 2030, BIC aims for 50% non-virgin petroleum plastic for its product with a goal of 20% by 2025. And by 2025, 100% of BIC consumer plastic packaging will be reusable, recyclable, or compostable. Do not deduct for those who are in the not working on plastic, but working, for example, on metals or other, that there is no commitment they are commitment. We just don't want to take too much time on it. So in fact, we have to move and on all raw materials that we are using for lighters. The second point is linked to that. Sustainable innovation will be a critical step in the future. And when I say the future, is very close future. We are launching currently a lighter with minus 30% CO2 impact. And we are preparing the next version that will be minus 45% in terms of impact. So we are going ahead, it goes fast, and we need you to be on board. And this is critical if you want to go on working with us, that you even are showing us the way, giving ideas on how we can improve. This is not just theoretical. We are currently exchanging with NGOs. We are doing that for 2 years already, and we had sessions in France and in Brazil last month, and we're going to get in the next few months again in Mexico, the US, Canada, France, and Spain, where in fact we take their feedback. We present them what we achieved already. We present as well what we want to achieve to get again their feedback, sometimes the advice, and sometimes as well some challenge about what we are doing. This is part of the game. Let's be clear. We move on that because I am convinced that this is the way to go. Nobody imposed me that program. And along with the team that you see here from BIC and Transition, we are leading this program. I am watching on an extremely regular basis, monthly, the progress which we are making. And this is absolutely important that you show us the way, that you show the willingness to progress, so that we find out the best way to go forward. But let's be clear, in a short future, our set of suppliers will hang on those efforts on which we are talking about today. So we are using in our plan a number of key things, but I will insist just on a few of them. Science-based decisions. We are currently, for example, testing all raw materials that we are supplied with on toxicity. And it's very interesting to see that 2 different materials from 2 different suppliers, the same raw material from 2 distinct suppliers may have completely different results. So we'll come back to you, and some of you already are part of it and already received information on the dimensions on which it's really needed to evolve. What we are going to is very simple. Our first objective is to collect our lighter and disassemble our lighter to recycle the raw materials. So in fact, the raw materials need to be able to swallow that and give the possibility of a good reuse after. In case some lighter, which should not happen, but in reality it happens, if some lighters ended up in the environment, then we need to make sure that the impact of the lighters will have the minimum impact on the environment. I will just comment the the right-hand side of the chart, where in fact the reduction of consumption is critical, and we need here your input and your knowledge so that we guide us on how we can improve beyond the ideas we may have. We as well need to go to carbon neutrality. For the time being, for each and every of you, we are using databases so that we guess what would be the impact. But in fact, that's just a step. And the next step is that we need to work with each and every of you to know the real impact of the raw material that you are selling us, so that we set the base. Then right after, we all know the path. We need to decrease CO2 emissions year by year, and the objective that will be given to each and every of you will be to decrease it by 7%. I tell you already now that will be confirmed in the next coming weeks and months. And last, and that presentation was done before COVID time, but in fact resilience is critical, and COVID is an excellent illustration of what resilience means for one side of resilience. And that's something on which we need to work more because in fact, COVID showed a number of weaknesses for some of us and as well for some dimension for us directly in our plans. And that's something on which we really need to progress because the years to come beyond COVID will not be easier. That's going to be even more difficult. So we have to be prepared, all of us, to successfully go ahead.
Thank you, François. So just to complete a bit and to go beyond the 4R philosophy, which is not a philosophy, it's really a practice for us. We wanted to show you some of the aspect of the usability of our product. Long tab, big product has been considered as disposable as such, but beside the choice of the material, beside the fact that most of our material now are recyclable and are using and will use more and more recyclable product to produce them, we are also considering the usability of our product. More than 3 kilometers of writing for our crystal, 3,000 flame for our lighter. We are working now on a system, hybrid and system in our shaver. We definitely use the environment-based norm to address our product. And we actually have a range that we call Ecolution to develop any responsible product. François talked about a more responsible lighter. You will soon see the result of that within the Ecolution brand. So our goal within our product, we walk the talk, it's to reduce the impact of this product through the 4R philosophy. And lately, at the end of 2020, you should have received by the beginning of 2021, we developed a big supplier code of conduct that was done initially in 2000. So we revisit totally our code of conduct in line with the new code of conduct from BIC. It's based on business integrity and standard, human right and labor standard, health and safety standard, and environmental impact, which is really important in this big code of conduct. Something that we are going to develop also on top of this code of conduct is a sustainability policy. So we are actively working with Transition as well on the sustainability policy, and supplier, of course, will be fully part of this policy.
Thank you, Romain. We now go to the second part of the webinar and to explain to you the partnership that we have with Transition and what that partnership is also meaning, what do we intend to do and how Transition have gone about to doing that. So the first part, Clément, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, thank you, Josie. So here again, we wanted to highlight bits also the reason why BIC is doing such work, and it's very important, I think, to kindly remind you what are at stakes, and this is something more and more visible, and I will go into more detail after. But you need to to realize that there are a lot of impacts according to the origin, the sourcing area, the different processes, industrial processes behind the extraction and production of the raw materials that BIC is using on all the products that they buy, and these processes present a lot of, as I said, a lot of risk and impacts on people and on nature. So, for example, I think you're already aware of this, but especially on the mining extraction is very impactful in terms of health, safety, and the condition of working for the people, and they also link to a lot of livelihood disruptions and linked to deforestation, impact on ecosystem and biodiversity. You have a lot of problems related to pollutions in terms of water, in terms of soils, due to leakage and so on, and you have a lot also of emissions toxic pollutants or CO2 or other greenhouse gases. And this is also a problem that we see in the supply chain, that there is often a lot of conflicts around the land use and the conflicts with some communities and indigenous people. Next slide, please. So as I said, such impacts were maybe in the shadow a few years ago, related to the mining and the different extractives. But now there is a lot of more and more growing number of reports and grievances that are highlighting such impacts and risk. And yeah, you have a lot of more and more NGOs that are targeting their work on highlighting such impacts, and in order to address those impacts and risk and stakes, you have a lot of also new guidance, new guidelines edited, and standard and so on to cope with these grievances highlighted by the civil society, especially coming from the European Union. So you have a lot of due diligence practices to put in place and so on, to align with their expectation and to mitigate the risks that are linked to your supply chains. So just to illustrate a bit, in terms of sector, you have a lot of sectors that are dealing with such risk and mitigation, especially sectors like the automotive sector or the extraction of fossil fuels and so on, that are targeting and committing to reduce their greenhouse gases emissions. They are taking commitments in terms of transparency and sustainability in general. So we have here an evolving ecosystem that put pressure on brands, but also on new and on suppliers to address the risk that I presented earlier. Next slide, please. Yeah. Charlotte, do you want to take over?
Yes, thank you, Clément. For a bit of background on the minerals and extractive supply chains. Hello, everybody. So this slide is representing our partnership with BIC since the beginning. We started in 2018, and the first was to establish a sustainability roadmap and targets overall, including a different topic, like François-Clément Grandcourt explained. But today the focus is really on responsible sourcing, and that work has started in 2019 with a transparency pilot that was initiated with Clément and my colleague Aïssa in 2020 on 9 raw materials, where you had a presentation and you signed NDA and so on in order to share information and discuss about those transparency topic. This year we restarted this or continue this transparency pilot by getting in touch with you, and I will go into details later, but the role for this year was to continue that transparency, but also identify the geographical sources in order to have a risk assessment, identify where the raw materials of BIC are coming from, and the different players, and how we can also evaluate those players. As well, we scope some solutions, and we co-construct a strategy like Romain explained as well earlier. Next slide, please. Thank you, Josie. So the key pillars for 2021, as I explained, the focus today is really on increasing transparency, and that's why your contribution is really key, and that's why we've been bothering you this year quite a lot. But the objective is really to go step by step, and we know that this type of project takes a long time, and yeah, it's about ongoing and just continuing pushing the supply chain to have more transparency. Next slide, please. So for us, what we understand from this year as well, because I joined this year, a transition role in supporting BIC is to find solutions for unlocking issues and the needs of BIC. So the first was the lack of understanding of the supply chain and potential risk associated. This we count on the transparency, of course, to do that, but we can assume some sources because we know, for example, that bauxite is mainly extracted in Guinea, so we can assume some things like this. However, the transparency is really one of the important key information that we need to have in order to have a more thorough risk assessment, but also a thorough strategic and focused action plan for BIC. The second point is the difficulty to identify relevant solution and innovation. Of course, within the BIC scope, there are a lot of raw materials from gas to plastic to aluminium and rare earth. So that involve as many solutions, as many innovations possible. So we try to this year to discuss with external stakeholders in order to identify the most relevant solutions for BIC and adapt it also to the specificity of lighters category. And then a need to prioritize the action and the raw materials with a roadmap adapted. Of course, we cannot fight all the battles at once, so maybe the roadmap would be first focused on 2 or 3 raw materials, and then the further following years. Next slide, please, Josie. Thank you. So today, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Charlotte. No, thank you. And just for the second or the third part then. So far we understand the sustainability approach we want. The second part is the partnership with the transition. This is now after the work of transition has done on our behalf to share with you what the transparency pilot, the results, and what does that also mean for you. Okay, Charlotte.
So maybe just a kind reminder on our role. We work as a third party in order for the suppliers to feel comfortable sharing information with us. We in different with different clients we work with, we always have this role where you can share the data, and then the data will not be shared with BIC. That's important. BIC, what we share with them is the aggregated information in order, again, to identify the source and the region of sourcing. This is just a little reminder. Most of the people, I think, that are on the call, I already talked to, and Clément as well. So, but I just wanted to remind everyone of our role. So on the left, you have a mapping, a drawing, and that I did myself of the supply chain and the different steps in order to show you what's our goal. So you are tier 1 supplier, and the objective is to reach tier 2, tier 3, and in order to reach the sources region and the mines at origin. So the data we will collect is to be able to have a map like on the right and identifying the sourcing region, and then prioritize and identify where is the higher risk. On the next slide, maybe I will explain something that is really important. Maybe can you go to the next slide again, Josie, please? Yeah, something that is really important for us is we and BIC is aligned with us, of course, is to have a no disengagement policy in risky area. What we look for, we look for transparency in order to prioritize and then focus our efforts on where it's most risky. The importance of this approach, of this transparency approach, is to identify the sources area. So identify who are the main actors and where they're sourcing from. And then this will enable us to have a supply chain risk analysis, like I said. And again, disengagement is not on the plate. And for us, your role as a tier 1 supplier is really to work with us to convince, to get your tier 2 contact, and even talk to your tier 2 contact saying this is in demand from the market, and this is something that we really would like to have. Thank you, Josie. So this is a summary of the actions that we took this year for getting in touch with you, right? We started sending an email in February, and then we got several calls. Some of you, we had 1-2 calls with different team members internally. So this is thank you for the suppliers that really try to help us identify those key actors within your companies. Overall, what we identified is that all suppliers are willing to discuss and open to understand what is the objective, etc. Even though we're still lacking, of course, information, and that's also one of the objectives of this webinar is to remind you that it's important information to be collected for BIC. So maybe next slide, Josie. So we'll share with you basically on the total suppliers consulted. We had 30% of tier 1 suppliers that provided information on the tier 2 suppliers, and then 60% that refused to share contact for different reasons. But it's for us not enough, of course. And out of the tier 2 suppliers that we receive information, we started contacting them, and only 1% responded positively to the discussion. The others, we never got an answer. So for us, one of the action that is also good is that you as tier 1 supplier can support in pushing for getting the information. I see, François, you might have something to say.
I will be a bit direct here. I initiated this plan in Lighters, and this program we're talking about today is a critical pillar of it. I must say that I've been extremely deluded to see that only a third of the suppliers were really playing the game. So I thank them very much, even more. Because when discussing with NGOs, I discovered that the industry in which you are part of those industries which are well known by NGOs to be, as we could say, to be really polite, less mature on the topic. The fact not to move is not an option. And between the people present here and suppliers present here, there is one, which I will not quote, who we alerted 3 years ago, saying, be careful what you are doing, you are in the radar of the NGOs. We re-alerted a year after. And finally, 6 months ago, during the AGM, an NGO went and proposed an amendment to be voted. Management said it was to be refused. It was accepted by a very high number of shareholders, more than 80%. That's a slap in the face, and a major one. Do not imagine that any of us, even though you don't have a brand which would be known to consumers, can escape it. And that supplier learned it in a very violent manner because that brought a very high and very strong reaction from the shareholders. So my point here is today, we already stopped some contract with some suppliers who were really not playing the game and even going against it. This is not something that we wish. We value long-term relationship with most of you. We are having relationship for a very long time, and our objective is to keep it. But on the other hand, the world is changing, and we will build the world and build our world with those who want to build it. So I deeply thank those who are really on board and helping us. I deeply thank as well those opening us the door of tier 2 suppliers, and then after we have to go to tier 3 and up to the mines. That's where we want to be, up to the mines. For the others, let's be clear. During my monthly review with Josie and Romain, I am having the list of those suppliers not participating to this program. And I will have to make decisions. And I would like to take the good decisions, and the good decisions to go ahead. And I would like to make sure that I have from you what will allow me to go ahead this way.
Thank you, Francois.
Yeah, thank you, Francois. So really the blocking points from for sharing information here were the fear to be bypassed by BIC, and for us this is not possible. Our vision from transition is really that the supply chain is as it is, and we have to identify the nodes as it is, because it's the way the raw materials is sourcing for BIC. So we signed NDA, and we even created an antitrust statement by our lawyer in order for you suppliers to be reassured of the commitment. There is a lack of demand from other customers, and like you said, Francois, some NGOs are coming at different raw materials, and they're choosing their focus, either environmental topic, but also human rights abuses that are happening in a lot of metals and mineral supply chain. So for us, one of our answer is to have to tell you that there are growing demand on this sector, because we see as a consultancy firm, we have some actors also calling us on this topic in order to help them on getting sustainable sourcing and how what to do on this topic and how to reduce the risk. There are raising campaigns from NGOs. The most recent is the one from Human Rights Watch on the automotive as well. And for the GDPR law, some suppliers that didn't want to share tier 2 contacts, we offered to be doing the call with you with tier 1 and tier 2. It's a bit new, I would say, because usually the tier 1 suppliers in other raw material supply chain, they share information. But if this is something you are more comfortable with, we can do that. So we can also co-host a call with the tier 2 suppliers of BIC. I think for can you go to the next slide, Josie, please? That's
Yeah,
for
so on the next steps, really this is to explain you are on this webinar as you are a strategic supplier to BIC. You're on this webinar because we want to share with you our journey from a sustainability point of view. As you have realized, from a transparency point of view, this is the way BIC wants to work moving forward. Where you have responded positively, this is great. This is exactly what we want. Where you haven't, this is exactly where we talk about now. What are the next steps? What do we expect from all of you? And how do we together with you go on to this sustainability roadmap further? Roman, if you want to explain why engaging with BIC now is important.
Yeah, I just want to complete what Francois was saying, because I think it's really important to look at this exercise as a frame, as a tool, as a journey we need to do together. I mean, you saw that from the last COP26, any progress is making out of commitment with mutual agreement, with mutual cooperation. We cannot do that alone. What we are doing right now is proposing a way to address that together. So we are engaging our strategic supplier because they have a high impact on our sustainability, but because you also will be able to do the same with your own supplier. Engaging right now with us is being ahead of what's coming later. So you will face similar requests from your customer. You will face similar requests from your consumer, from your shareholder. It's just a question of time. Using this journey, this project is really for us a way, and for you a way to address that ahead and to prepare yourself. And even if we are not going through 100% of transparency, what's important is to show our shareholder, our stakeholder, NGO, that we are trying, that we are doing something for that, and that we are aware of what's going on around. I'm not going back on the risk of not taking action. As I was telling you at the beginning of this webinar, we see responsible procurement as a filter, as a lens to select our strategic supplier. So you can automatically imagine what will be the consequence of not going into this journey with us. But my point here is really to welcome you in this program and to engage more with us, with your supplier, so we can deliver something for the future. So thank you again for engaging with us. And thank you for the one who were not engaging with us and we are now willing to give us more transparency, because that's really where BIC is going.
Thank you, Romain. So with regards to the roadmap, what is our roadmap? So what can you expect from us? So with regards to the roadmap, you already have worked with EcoVadis, so we will continue to work with EcoVadis. We'll continue to improve your scoring. We continue overall to also have more suppliers in our also strategic panel to ensure that we're all going on the same sustainability roadmap. The second part that you can expect, we are working, as François Clément Grandcourt was explaining, on our roadmap for CO2 emissions. So we will, and you have to, as we have to, also to our customers in line, you also have to, with us as a customer of yours, provide CO2 emissions. But not only the emissions, also the improvements of the emissions. And again, as we alluded to, the target most likely will be 7% each year of improvement needed. We want more information about your product life cycle, your improvements in CO2, your improvement in your product life cycle analysis, your improvement on the circular economy is our improvement. So together we can build a future together. So we will reach out to you on your proposals on how to improve our joint sustainability roadmap. What we will do is, in the sense of a strategic partnership, that means that we also very much take the sustainability as a key factor, a key KPI, a key element of who do we work further with in our partnership in the future, not only for common business, but also regarding partnership for sustainability projects. So the more you are focused on sustainability, the more you can drive your sustainability roadmap, the more we're interested in working with you in the future. So as a next step, and as the result of the transparency is not as we were expecting, so we are actively asking your support in ensuring that you share the right contact details with transition regarding your tier 2 suppliers. As already explained, it is confidential, so it's an area where you can safely give that information, but help us in ensuring that our supply chain has the right transparency. What we expect from you is to share more information regarding your responsible sourcing journey together with us. We'll reach out to you and we'll give you the opportunity for further partnership with us. What we will do, and what is our commitment, is that we will start, and this is partly the beginning of the road journey, we will continue to communicate closely on our strategy and our roadmap. We will also provide support to, especially to those suppliers, on transparency and how we can move forward together. And thirdly, we want to, and we commit to have a bilateral dialogue on our shared targets. So thank you all for your attention. In this webinar, Eva, could you advise maybe if there are some questions, how people can ask questions?
Yes, so far there is no question, but if you want to ask one, you can use the live Q&A on the top right corner of your screen. You can type your question, it will be anonymous. But so far we haven't got any question.
I suggest we give it a few minutes. Maybe we have some questions. So please feel free to type any question in the chat that we can live answer during this webinar. Okay, it seems that we have no questions. Eva,
No question. No,
no more questions.
no.
Okay, then I suggest we conclude this webinar. Thank you all very much for your attention. So please reach out to Transition or myself if you have any other questions, and we will definitely be in touch on the future and the future hopefully together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.